Shabbat Shalom, all my brothers and sisters in Yahweh, our Elohim, and welcome. Welcome to our Shabbat Bible study. And tonight we'll be studying Bereshith, which is Genesis, chapters 37 and 38. So go ahead and grab your Bibles and we'll get started tonight. I hope you all had a really good week. Now it's time to learn about our family history. You ready? Let me grab a drink of water real quick. Okay, that's better. Chapter 37. And Jacob dwelt in the land of his father's sojournings, in the land of Canaan. This is the genealogy of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brothers, and the young man was with the sons of Bilhah, and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought an evil report of them to his father. And Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a long robe. But when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him, and they were not able to speak peaceably to him. And Joseph dreamed a dream, and told it to his brothers, so they hated him even more. And he said to them, "Please, listen to this dream which I have dreamed. See, we were binding sheaves in the midst of the field, and see, my sheaf rose up, and also stood up. And see, your sheaves stood all around, and bowed down to my sheaf." And his brothers said to him, "Shall you indeed reign over us? Shall you indeed rule over us?" So they hated him even more for his dreams, and for his words. And he dreamed still another dream, and related it to his brothers, and said, "See, I have dreamed another dream, and see, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars bowed down to me." And he related it to his father and his brothers. And his father rebuked him, and said to him, "What is this dream that you have dreamed? Shall we, your mother, and I, and your brothers indeed come to bow down to the earth before you?" And his brothers envied him, but his father guarded the word. And his brothers went to feed their father's flock in Shechem. And Yisrael said to Joseph, "Are not your brothers feeding the flock in Shechem? Come, I send you to them." So he said to him, "Here I am." And he said to him, "Please go and see if it is well with your brothers and well with the sheep, and bring back word to me." So he sent him out of the valley of Hebron, and he went to Shechem. And a certain man found him, and see, he was wandering in the field. And the man asked him, saying, "What do you seek?" And he said, "I am seeking my brothers. Please inform me where they are feeding their sheep." And the man said, "They have left here, for I heard them say, 'Let us go toward Dothan.'" So Joseph went after his brothers, and found them in Dothan. And they saw him from a distance, and before he came near, they plotted against him to kill him. And they said to each other, "See, this master of dreams is coming. Now then, let us now kill him, and throw him into some pit, and shall say, 'Some wild beast has devoured him. Let us then see what comes of his dreams.'" But Reuben heard, and rescued him from their hands, and said, "Let us not strike his being." And Reuben said to them, "Shed no blood. Throw him into this pit which is in the wilderness. Do not lay a hand on him, in order to rescue him out of their hands, and bring him back to his father." So it came to be, when Joseph had come to his brothers, that they stripped Joseph of his robe, the long robe which was on him. And they took him, and threw him into a pit, and the pit was empty. There was no water in it. And they sat down to eat a meal. And they lifted their eyes and looked, and saw a company of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead with their camels, bearing spices and balm and myrrh, going to take them down to Mizraim. And Judah said to his brothers, "What would we gain if we kill our brother and conceal his blood? Come, and let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother, our flesh." And his brothers listened. And men, Midianite traders, passed by, so that they pulled Joseph up and lifted him out of the pit, and sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver, and they took Joseph to Mizraim. And Reuben returned to the pit, and see, Joseph was not in the pit, and he tore his garments. And he returned to his brothers and said, "The boy is gone, and I, where am I to go?" So they took Joseph's robe, slew a male goat, and dipped the robe in the blood, and sent the long robe and brought it to their father, and said, "We have found this. Please look, is the robe of your son, or not?" And he recognized it and said, "It is my son's robe. An evil beast has devoured him. Joseph is torn to pieces." And Jacob tore his garments, and put sackcloth on his waist, and mourned for his son many days. And all his sons and all his daughters arose to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted, and he said, "Now let me go down into Sheol to my son in mourning." So his father wept for him. And the Midianites had sold him in Mizraim to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, and a captain of the guard. Okay, there's 37. There's a lot going on there, huh, gang? Just so everybody's clear with everything that I'm reading, we got to remember that there's no J's in Hebrew. So I could pronounce these as they're written in Hebrew, or I can pronounce them how they're written in English, minus the J, a Y instead, so that we're all of understanding. But I'll go through and I'll explain any of them to you if y'all want me to, okay? However you want me to do this. But so far, it's just been how they're pronounced. Let's see here. They're in the land of Canaan living, and Joseph's having dreams, and his brothers are jealous because his dreams are indicating that they're going to be bound to him. So they get all jealous and they plot against him. And it's kind of interesting here because when Joseph is seeking for his brothers, the stranger tells them that they went out and they're hanging out in Dathan. Well, we're going to learn some things about Dathan later on. You're going to go, oh boy, they were not in a good place. Because Dathan is like filth. And they were doing bad things anyway. But there's a lot there, so you might want to go ahead and take your marker and mark right here where it talks about the brothers all being in Dathan, because that comes up again. Let's see, they plotted against him, they were going to kill him, and it appears that Reuben stopped them from killing him. So they just threw him in a pit. And they took him down to Mizraim, which is Egypt, okay, and sold him to Potiphar, who's an officer of Pharaoh. So now Joseph is sold slave, and he's in Pharaoh's court, basically. So, kind of interesting, little chain of events. Alright, let's go ahead and do 38. And at that time it came to be that Judah, left his brothers and turned aside to a man, an Edomite, whose name was Hirah. And Judah saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanite, whose name was Shavah, and he took her and went into her. So she conceived and bore a son, and called his name And she conceived again and bore a son, and she called his name Anan. And she conceived yet again and bore a son, and called his name Shelah. and he was at Kezib when she bore him. And Judah took a wife for his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. But Judah's firstborn, was evil in the eyes of Yahweh, and Yahweh took his life. And Judah said to Onan, "Go in to your brother's wife and marry her, and raise up an heir to your brother." And Onan knew that the offspring would not be his. And it came to be, when he went in to his brother's wife, that he spilled on the ground, lest he should give an offspring to his brother. But what he did displeased Yahweh, so he took his life too. Then Judah said to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, "Remain a widow in your father's house until my son Shelah is grown." For he said, "Lest he also die as his brother did." And Tamar went and dwelt in her father's house. And after a long time, the daughter of Shelah, Judah's wife, died. And Judah was comforted, and went up to his sheep shearer at Timnah, he and his friend Herah, the Adulamite. And it was reported to Tamar, saying, "See, your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear his sheep." And she took off her widow's garments, and covered herself with a veil, and wrapped herself, and sat at the entrance to Enyam, which was on the way to Timnah. For she saw that Shelah was grown, and she was not given to him as a wife. And Judah saw her, and reckoned her for a whore, for she had covered her face. And he turned aside to her by the way, and said, "Please, let me come in to you." For he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. And she said, "What do you give me to come in to me?" And he said, "Let me send you a young goat from the flock." And she said, "Do you give me a pledge until you send it?" So he said, "What pledge should I give you?" And she said, "Your seal and your cord, and your staff that is in your hand." And he gave them to her, and went in to her, and she conceived by him. And she arose and went away, and removed her veil, and put on the garments of her widowhood. And Judah sent a young goat by the hand of his friend the Adulamite, to receive his pledge from the woman's hand, but he did not find her. And he asked the men of that place, saying, "Where is the cult prostitute who was beside the way to Enyam?" And they said, "There was no cult prostitute in this place." And he returned to Judah, and said, "I have not found her." And the men of the place also said that there was no cult prostitute in this place. And Judah said, "Let her take them for herself, lest we become despised. For I sent this young goat, and you have not found her." And it came to be, about 3 new moons after that, Judah was informed, saying, "Tamar, your daughter-in-law has whored, and see, she has conceived by whoring." And Judah said, "Bring her out, and let her be burned." When she was brought out, she sent to her father-in-law, saying, "By the man to whom these belong, I am pregnant." And she said, "Please examine whose these are, the seal, and the cord, and the staff." And Judah examined and said, "She has been more righteous than I, because I did not give her to Shelah my son." And he never knew her again. And it came to be, at the time for giving birth, that, see, twins were in her womb. And it came to be, when she was giving birth, that the one put out his hand, and the midwife took a scarlet thread and bound it on his hand, saying, "This one came out first." And it came to be, as he drew back his hand, that, see, his brother came out. And she said, "How did you break through? This breach be upon you." So his name was called Peretz. And afterward his brother came out, who had the scarlet thread on his hand. So his name was called Zerah. Wow, there's a bunch going on there, isn't there? Old Judah, ended up sleeping with his daughter-in-law, didn't even realize it, because he didn't give his youngest son to her. Wow. And all those other brothers, they died because they were not doing what they're supposed to do. Whew. Pretty crazy, but see, there's the bloodline again. There is the bloodline. Because when we come back here and we see that Judah took her as a wife, took this daughter of a certain Canaanite, Shavua, as a wife, well, there's strike one. And then strike two is when, let's see here. Well, she bore 3 sons, and Shelah was the youngest of them. It just, the whole thing snowballed because of the bloodline. He wasn't supposed to take a wife that was a Canaanite because of the corrupted blood. So all kinds of bad things started happening to him there. And it just went on and on and on. And now he's got 2 illegitimate sons. Probably would be a really good idea to highlight the part about the illegitimate sons and their names, because they come up later on. Peretz and Zerah. Probably want to highlight those because we're going to see them later on. This is not going to turn out good. So, it's going to be interesting to see, won't it, gang? Every study, they're all very, very interesting about how our family's history and our roots, how we progressed. Whew. Wow. And Yosef, he's in a fix. Yosef's in a fix. So we're going to find out more about him too. But for now, that's all I've got. So, y'all have a good Shabbat. Enjoy it. Enjoy it. Relax. Don't do anything that you ain't supposed to be doing. And we'll see you on our midweek. Y'all have a good night. Shalom.